to present to you the who, what, where, when, why, and how of this expedition. First question I'm often asked is, are you insane? And to that I have the reply that this is not an impossible quest. It can be done. In response to the Americans with Disability Act, rural transit has been increasingly well funded and thus increasingly available. Maybe there hasn't been a whole lot of growth in fixed route bus service in that meantime, or really a huge increase in the availability of rail. But demand response dial-a-ride vans go from county line to county line as a result of these ADA mandated changes. And it's important to note that you don't have to be disabled to take advantage of these. You just wouldn't qualify for discounts. And I'm going to be paying full fare the whole way through. And also, in addition to public buses and, of course, vans and regional rail, there's ride shares, van pools, and carpools. And in some areas, these are really well developed. In central Pennsylvania, I discovered that van pools are really the way to get in and out of State College, where Penn State University is located. And when you're getting from in the western end of the state from Pittsburgh, if you want to commute to or from Wheeling, West Virginia, it's van pools, and these are organized by the local mass transit operators. Also, I'm stretching the public mass transit definition a little. It's going to be nothing that DOT would recognize. The Department of Transportation is responsible for funding mass transit agencies, and so their definition of mass transit has to do with who is eligible for their funding. And actually, church buses, some of them at least, are federally funded. I didn't know that, but they may or may not be regulated in the same way that mass transit systems are. Also, casino buses. I mean, casinos are always running free buses to and from their locations, and that's actually how I plan to get from the Tucson area to the Phoenix area. These two towns are close enough together that you'd figure there'd be some kind of overlapping mass transit, but there isn't. There's one county in between, and I'm not making this up. On this county's website, when it talked about mass transit, it had a picture of two guys in a golf cart. I'm not making that up. I also found out that universities often have motor pools. If I offer my time to a student club around journalism or around urban planning or anything to that effect, they would need to pick me up where I am and need to drop me off somewhere. So I'm going to be looking into that. Also, Native American tribes often have their own mass transit system that is in no way hooked into the Department of Transportation in Washington. They're held at arm's length, and they are run entirely by and for the benefit of the Native American nation. For instance, in late November, I plan to be taking Cherokee Nation transit through northern Texas to get my way from the Oklahoma border to Wichita Falls. So we'll see how that works. Also, there are private vendors who serve the same purpose as public authorities. Now, for some reason, there is no suburban mass transit feeding into the capital of the state of Missouri. It's a town called Columbia, which I have to confess I didn't know before I started this. But Columbia, I think it's got a downtown loop, but it doesn't really have mass transit that goes too far out of town. And the nearest city to Columbia is Jefferson City. Now, Columbia itself is on I-70, practically smack dab in the middle between Kansas City and St. Louis. Jefferson City is about, I think, 30 miles to the south. And someone figured out that there's no mass transit in and out of Columbia, that most people who work in Columbia don't live in Columbia, and a lot of them live in Jeff City. So he figured there's thousands of people like this. If I can find 48 of them to ride my bus every day, I've made a living. And I'll be on that. It's a private company, serves the same purpose as a public authority, just isn't one. So I reiterate, there's going to be no need for Amtrak, Greyhound, Uber, or even local taxis. And really, to answer the question, are you insane? No. I've been certified sane. So, where did this idea come from? Well, back in July, I think it was, I was on a trip from my home here in central Nassau County to a conference in New Brunswick, New Jersey. So it was an easy trip. I just took the Long Island Railroad to Penn Station, walked up a flight of stairs, uh, went on the New Jersey Transit train, and just followed it all the way down here. It was a comfortable ride and uh, got me there in plenty of time. It was really a very efficient way to travel. But it started me wondering, how far does this chain go? I mean, let me show you something. Remember in that last slide, New Brunswick was down here somewhere? Well, here it is up here. So I could have stayed on that train all the way to 30th Street Station in Philly. Then I could have taken SEPTA to the edge of Chester County, Pennsylvania. And then I wondered, well, how far would I have to walk, if at all, to hook up with Lancaster's mass transit system? And does that hook up to Harrisburg's? Looks like it might. And then how do I head west from Harrisburg? Alternately, from Philly, I could have just kind of continued on the same southwest tack. And I was wondering, well, what does it take to hook up to the MARC train, which takes you from northern Maryland into the District of Columbia? And from Union Station in DC, how far into Virginia could I get? Probably at least as far as Fredericksburg. Who knows how much farther? So that thought exercise turned into the cross country local. But why go through the trouble? Well, there are a number of reasons, but the primary one is to bring attention to the current challenges and tremendous opportunities of mass transit in the US. This is not just for northeastern suburbanites. There is mass transit available across the country. I think it's a matter of appetite more than population density that we have so many options here. I also want to demonstrate that Americans' sense of community doesn't end where the fixed route buses do. I am entrusting myself, my safety, my life and limb to total strangers. And I don't just mean the bus drivers, and I don't just mean my fellow passengers. I mean the communities I'm going to be entering in and leaving on my way. I also want to do some short form journalism as well, and I want to celebrate local heroes, local characters, local traditions, kind of in a Charles Kuralt sort of vein. If news breaks in front of me, I'll report on it. And lastly, when someone asked Sir Edmund Hillary why he climbed Mount Everest, you all know what he said, because it's there. Well, I want to do this because it can be done. I don't think that the cross country local could have gotten past Harrisburg, Pennsylvania 5 years ago, but it can now. And let's see if we can get from coast to coast. And frankly, if I get through it with absolutely no hiccups, if it all goes smooth, I'm going to be disappointed, not just because I was robbed of an adventure, but also it would be testimony to uh, the frontier being completely gone. That there's already nowhere in America where a county bus is not going to come pick you up if you call for it. All right, I'm going to just fast forward through these next few slides, just taking it step by step. First, I'm going to get from my home to Philadelphia, and then from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh, and then from Pittsburgh to Cincinnati. From there, I'm on to St. Louis, and a little zigzag to hit Indianapolis. And from St. Louis, I go out to Kansas City, pivot left and head down to Fort Worth. And from there, I skirt the border from West Texas through New Mexico into Arizona, then on up to Phoenix. And lastly, I get from Phoenix to the Pacific Ocean. I think I might have mentioned earlier, I thought I'd just continue straight west to San Diego, but it really looks like uh, the easiest way to get to the Pacific Ocean is on a northwest tack going through Vegas up to Carson City, and then down past Lake Tahoe through the El Dorado National Forest and Sacramento down into San Francisco. But anyway, bottom line, 14 states, roughly 105 rides, maybe more, maybe less, about 4,179 miles again, more or less, 68 days if nothing goes wrong. So I'm going to just let you freeze frame this if you really want to know too much detail here, but I'm a freelance journalist. I'm an IT management consultant. I've written a couple of science fiction books, and I hope to write another on the way. I'm a Boy Scouts of America leader, and if you met me on the street, you'd swear I was just a nice, normal suburban workadaddy. Anyway, I do want you to follow the cross country local, track my progress across the country. Also, if you can, support this expedition. No amount of money is too small, or for that matter, too great. But please follow me on Twitter, hashtag XCLocal. I've got the YouTube address there, but I guess you already have that if you're watching this. Or please like the Facebook page. And if you can support the Cross Country Local in any amount, in any way, please check out the GoFundMe site. So thanks again for taking the time to listening to the who, what, where, when, why, and how of the Cross Country Local. Hope to see you along the route.